Hello, welcome back to 3D Drawing for your model railway. In the last episode we added in the two canvases and we discussed about how we're going to potentially look at breaking this model into separate components. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do in this episode is get rid of this body that we'd drawn previously. So if we come into the bodies here, we can just right click and actually before we remove it, let's remember the width of it, 16.216. We can just actually hide it and it'll still be there and it could potentially be useful for us in the future. That might be a better option. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new component, which is going to be the chassis. So it's going to be a standard component type. The name's going to be chassis, and the parent is already selected at the top there, which is the main part. Clicking on OK. This now creates that component part down underneath it. Okay, so let's spin this round and we're going to turn off the front canvas so that we can draw the lower part of the chassis here. So let's create a sketch on the side here and selecting a 2-point rectangle. We're going to put it doesn't matter which way we start, top or bottom, of which end, the corner point there, and we're going to work all the way across to the corner point there. Again, it doesn't matter what length it is because that's defined by the canvas. We can define it so that we know it's not going to move, and that's giving us a length of 117 millimeters. And we can define the height. It's going to be 3.89 millimeters. Okay, the reason it's not gone blue is because it's not centered within the origin, and I'm not really too worried about that, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day we're working from a canvas and that canvas isn't planning to move. Okay, so I'm going to extrude this body to the width that we wanted, which, if we remember back to this body that we had at the top here, was 16.213 millimeters, and that's given us the British N gauge width. Okay, so that's just the basic part of the chassis now complete that we've got down here. Okay, obviously you'll remember to make sure that you're working with that radio check box turned on. Okay. So now that we've got this basic floor, what I'm going to do is create some mid-planes that we can work around, which will always be there and always be useful for us. So I'm going to come back up into the top part. So we're checking the radio button for the main parent model because we're going to use these midpoints and mid-planes for the whole of the model that we're going to be constructing. So if we go to construct mid-plane, I'm going to pick the two sides to start with and click on OK. That's given us the mid-plane along the whole length of the DTS, and then we're going to use mid-plane from the two end points now as well. And click on OK. So we've now got two mid-planes that we can use for using as a reference for anything that's symmetrical. Now obviously if we think about the majority of our chassis here is going to be symmetrical. So I'm going to go back down to the chassis and I'm going to split this now into 4 parts. So we're going to use the split body tool. Body to split is going to be the main one here, and then the splitting tools, doesn't matter which order you use it, it's going to be the vertical one that goes across the length, goes across the width, sorry, and that splits that into 2. And then bodies to split, we're going to split that body there, and the splitting tool is going to be the one that goes along the length of the chassis. So now we should have down here 3 bodies, okay, and what I'm going to do is remove all of the ones that we don't need. So right click, remove, get rid of that one. Let's make sure we get the correct one of the 2 here. Doesn't matter which one you pick really. I'm going to remove body 3. Okay, and then I'm going to rename body 1. You can call that whatever you want, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to hide these 2 construction planes that we've just got, and then we can turn this around and hide that canvas. Okay, so if we look up close now, we can see that we've got a recessed area within the sole bar here, and that goes all the way along. Okay, so we can jump back into Fusion and we can make that recessed area within our chassis here. So we can see that we're drawing on this side here, so we're going to offset these three sides. So we're going to select a new sketch on the side of the chassis, offset tool, turning off chain selection because we don't want this end here. I'm going to select the three sides, holding down Control as we go around, and then we're going to drag the width internally. Okay, and I'm going to do minus 0.5 because I found that gives us, or gives me, the best thickness on these edges here when it prints. So we can click on OK, and we've now got that going all the way on the inside. We can recess this. If we look at this, how much do we think it's going to be recessed? Let's see if we can find a picture that shows us side on. This one actually is probably a good one. So if you look at that, we haven't got measurements that we can work to here unless Paul has handily measured them. We can just check that. I can't see a measurement that would show that. So looking at this picture, I'm going to say that that's probably 6 inches or so. That may be a bit big, 6 inches. Nah, maybe 4 inches. So I'm going to reset. So we've already got the extrude on there, and I'm going to recess this back into the body. See, I think 1 millimeter, that's 6 inches, is going to be too much. So I'm going to go for, say, 0.8 millimeters. And we can always come back and change that in the future if we feel like we need to. So that's given us the basic start for the chassis here. Okay, so looking for things that are symmetrical now we're on the chassis. So if we have a look, we've got a couple of boxes here, we've got a light, and we've got some pipe work that comes along. So if we have a look, that was side cab 1. So cab 2's got the same on the same side. The pipe work goes along, obviously the number of pipes changes. So I'm not going to worry about the pipes initially. So we've got these boxes here. Let's have a look on the other side. It's still the same side. What I'm looking for is this part here. Okay, now we're getting internally. It's the same side. Okay, so here's one of the unit a different way around. So again, we've got the same little boxes here. We've got the same spotlight. The pipes have changed on this side, so again we can't symmetrically mirror those across. So I'm thinking really that's about all we've got at the moment that we could add in that's symmetrical on the chassis there. So we're going to be drawing those on the recessed part of the body we've got here. Okay, and if we look at its position, the little one's pretty much close to where the bottom of the window comes down there. If we turn on the plan, we can see the window comes down here, so it's going to be pretty much right in the end. So let's just draw, it's going to be in the middle, and we're going to use center point rectangle. Let's just check that it is in the middle. Yeah, it looks like it is. do just a small one. Maybe 0.7 square. Okay, and let's define its distance. 1.15 millimeters. That should already be defined, its height, because we snap the midpoint, so you just enter whatever measurement that comes up there. And I'm going to extrude this forwards. Again, not going to do much, maybe 0.5. Okay, that gives us the first little ones. The next one along, let's have a look at its position. Doesn't matter which one we use. It's probably in line with the midpoint of the window. So again, using a sketch on that inner surface, and we're going to be in a center point rectangle. Looking for the midpoint coming down here, probably about there. And this is a little bit longer, so we're going to go for 1.4 long and 0.7 high. Define its position relative to that point there. Go for 3.7 millimeters, and its position height wise, just click on enter because it's midpointed. If we extrude that to the front surface here, and automatically join, that gives us those two little boxes there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to draw are the two spotlights that are here. Again, it's up to you how you orientate these, because looking at the picture, they're all at different angles. I suppose they're just like little car headlamps that they just swivel around. So jumping into Fusion, you would think drawing these headlights would be pretty simple, but it's a little bit convoluted. Because they're at an angle, you need to have a construction plane that is at an angle. So I'm going to create an offset plane. Sorry, not an offset plane. I'm going to construct a plane at an angle from the end panel or end edge at the top of the underframe here. Okay, I'm going to spin that round so that it's at an angle that's pointing sort of downwards to the angle that I'm after. So that sort of plane there, maybe a little bit less. Okay, and then we're going to offset a plane from that one and dragging it across roughly in line so it's at the bottom of the window there that we said. Okay. So now we've got two planes in here. We don't want that end one at the angle, we just need that offset plane that we've just drawn. So let's create a sketch on that plane. Okay, I'm going to just spin that onto the right so it's looking end on. And I'm going to slice through the model there so that we can see where we're at. Okay. So if we look at the shape, we've got like a curved front and then it domes backwards. Okay. I'm going to draw that by just initially drawing a circle. Okay. And I need that to be level with here. So we're going to project that line. We'll project the whole thing. Click on OK, and then we should be able to, or it's not. Let's try again. Project that edge, see if it will now snap. Nope, it won't. So that's not an issue because all I'm going to do then is just draw a circle. I'm going to go maybe 1.2 millimeters. I'm going to move the position of the light so it intersects this back panel. The reason for that is you need a bit of strength on here, otherwise this is just going to break off too simple. So just define the distance from the midpoint to that line. Let's try again, just snap it some weird measurements there. What's this line going up here? Don't know what, there must be something to do with the projection I did there. So I'm going to go for 0.41 there and we're going to do from there to there. I don't know why that's projected. Oh, because it's an angle, that's why it's projected that. That's fine. I'm going to leave it at that 9.31. Okay, and then we can extrude. We're going to extrude it as a new body initially because we need to curve the reverse off. So if we just say it's going to be 1mm, tell it to be a new body, click on OK, and then we can turn off the main chassis, and we can turn off the plans here so we're not looking at those, and then we're going to just fillet off that back edge. Oops. I think it's going to be 0.6, I think we said 1.2, yeah. 1.2 is our circumference or diameter, sorry. So we can just fill it off and 0.6 off the rear edge. Okay. And then I'm going to combine main body as the target body, and then the tool body is going to be that light that we've just drawn there. That's going to give us that lamp. Okay, so working our way along again, the next thing I notice is on both sides there's a small recess within the top and the bottom of the sole bar here. So we can sorry, I'll go back to this. That is the midpoint of the unit. So again, that's going to be nice and easy for us to draw on. If we jump into Fusion, we spin our body, make sure you're working at the correct end because it's going to be in the middle of the unit here. So we create a sketch on that top surface and just use a small rectangle here because it's just a rectangular plate that's missing. We're going to do 0.3, and I'm going to do it. It looks like it's about maybe just under a foot long if you look at the size here. Maybe not even that. Maybe sort of 8 inches or so. So obviously I'm working an N-gauge, so 6 inches is 1mm. So if I do about 0.4mm, should be 0.3 by 0.4. That's going to give us 0.8. No, it's even more than that. I'm going to go 0.8 there. That will give us 1.6, which will be about 8 inches or so. Yeah. And then it doesn't matter whether you drew this on the top or the bottom, because if you then right click and extrude, you can extrude that all the way through to the bottom of the chassis. That takes the top, it takes it out of the top and the bottom. So now when we mirror that across, we'll just have that recess that we've got here into the chassis. There is, if we look here, there is like a little extra strengthening bit here, which is the same on both of them. So we could add that in if we wanted to. To do that, come into Fusion. Now it's on the inside, and it doesn't come all the way to the front, it's just at the back. So if we draw on inside surface there, let's slice through so we can see what we're looking at. And we're going to use the rectangle tool, and we're just going to rectangle a little bit longer. It's going to be 0.5 width, and let's go for 1mm. Is that going to look okay? Need a bit more, a bit less. No, that's about right. So we'll go for 1mm, and then we're going to extrude that. Doesn't need to come up by much, maybe 0.2. Tell it to join, and we get that extra like strengthening part. Might even be too thick. Might make it a little bit longer actually. Let's go 1.2mm. Yeah. Cool, happy with that. We'll do one on the top surface. You could do a mirror plane and then mirror across, but it's going to be just as quick and easy to draw in, telling it 1.2 by 0.5, and then extruding by 0.2. Okay, I'm going to pretty much round up this episode here. I'm just going to copy and mirror these planes, these bodies over, so that we've got the whole of the chassis here, and then there is other things that we can look at adding as we go along. So if we look at doing the body, select the body, and then the mirror plane, it doesn't matter which order you do this in, you can do that side. Going to join, so click on OK, and then we do the same again, mirror, same body, and then mirror plane is going to be that inner surface there. Okay, so we've got our little headlights. If you wanted to do the headlights at different angles, you know, it's up to you. Is it worth the effort? Probably not, I don't think. I don't think people are going to really notice these because they're not going to be particularly large, but it's up to you. If you want to go in and just do those independently, then yeah, by all means go for it. Who am I to tell you you can or you can't? Okay, so that's our basic chassis shape. Obviously we know where our mirror points are here. If we find that we've got other things that are symmetrical as we go along, all we've got to do is just jump back in our sketch to before this point here, and then we can add them, and then they'll be symmetrically mirrored across. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, please press like and subscribe and follow along as we build this DTS unit.